I locked eyes with the mafia queen, and my quiet life went up in smoke. Let me start with the worst decision I ever made on purpose, the one that blew my life apart and somehow put it back together in a way I never knew I wanted. My name is Lena Cruz, and this is the story of how a 26-year-old cashier from Queens fell stupidly, recklessly, obsessively in love with a 50-something Italian mafia queen. Her name is Alessandra De Luca. Just saying it still feels like striking a match. Before her, my life was fine. I shared a cramped one-bedroom in Jackson Heights with my girlfriend, Hannah Park, who was 28 and worked as a dental assistant. We'd been together almost 3 years. We did all the normal couple things: meal prep Sundays, Netflix queues, arguments about laundry, sex that was comfortable and predictable. It wasn't bad. That was the problem. It was just fine. I worked at a bargain department store, ringing up discounted blenders and off-brand cereal until my feet throbbed. We lived paycheck to paycheck: rent, MetroCard, groceries, maybe one night out if nothing broke that month. But I wanted more. I wanted silk instead of polyester, real leather instead of vegan, lipstick that didn't smear off after one coffee. I scrolled designer websites like they were fairy tales, zooming in on handbags that cost more than my monthly rent and whispering, one day, even though I had no idea how one day would magically show up for a girl making $15.75 an hour. Whenever I splurged, a limited edition lipstick, a cheap knockoff bag that looked expensive, Hannah would sigh. "We need to save, Lena," she'd say, packing leftovers into mismatched plastic containers. "Emergency fund, remember? Teeth crack, cars die, life happens." "And I just want one nice thing," I'd snap. "Sorry, I don't want to die in sneakers from the clearance bin." We'd make up, we always did. But the resentment sat there, under everything, like a hairline fracture waiting for the right pressure. That pressure walked into a hotel bar one Friday night and looked straight at me like she'd been waiting. That was the moment my boring little life caught fire. It started because Hannah got free drink tickets. Her coworker's cousin worked at this midtown hotel, one of those places with a chandelier in the lobby and staff who talk softly like money has sensitive ears. "Come on," Hannah said, waving the email at me. "2 free cocktails each. We can pretend we're rich for a night." "You just said we need to save," I reminded her. "Free, babe. FREE. Think of it as financial self-care." I laughed and went along, because pretending is still cheaper than therapy. The bar was dim and understated. Nothing sticky, nothing chipped. Everyone's shoes shined. Everyone's laughs were quiet. I felt like an imposter in my black jeans and the one nice top I owned. Hannah was relaxed, though. She perched on a bar stool, talking about some drama at the office, while I tried not to stare at the woman 3 tables away. She arrived with 4 men in dark suits, and one woman who had the posture of someone used to carrying a gun. They moved like a formation naturally, without even looking at one another. At the center of them was her, Alessandra De Luca. I didn't know her name yet, only that the moment she crossed the threshold, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations dipped. Eyes slid her way and then quickly away again. She wore a perfectly tailored white suit over a black silk top, open at the throat. Her hair was iron gray, cut short at the nape and longer in front, like she'd gotten tired of caring about what anyone thought, and the haircut just followed. She had that kind of beauty that isn't really about bone structure, though she had that too, but about certainty. The way she moved, the way she claimed space, like gravity, owed her rent. She lit a cigarette right at the table, indoors, in Manhattan, in 2020-something, and no one said a damn thing. "Hey," Hannah nudged me. "Earth to Lena, you good?" "Yeah," I said, too fast. "Just tired. Liar." I watched the woman in the white suit. The way her fingers curled around the glass. The way people came to her table instead of the other way around. The way she listened more than she spoke. She glanced around the bar once, just a sweep of her gaze. For a second, our eyes met. Dark, almost black, and flat as a calm ocean hiding deep currents. I looked away first, heart slamming against my ribs. Who was she? Someone dangerous, someone important, someone I should have ignored. Obviously, I didn't. I told myself to stop staring. Normal people didn't fixate on strangers in bars like this, but every time Hannah turned to talk to the bartender or looked at her phone, my gaze slid back to that corner table. The men around the woman in white were different ages, but they all had the same vibe. Expensive watches, cheap patience. They leaned in when she talked. One laughed too loudly and immediately tried to dial it back, like he realized he'd broken some invisible rule. She didn't laugh. I wasn't even sure she knew how. She smoked like it was a slow ritual, each drag controlled, every exhale measured. I had the sudden knowledge that if she dropped the cigarette on the floor, 5 people would dive to pick it up before it hit the wood. "Who do you keep eyeballing?" Hannah asked finally, half teasing, half suspicious. "Nobody," I said automatically, then winced at myself. Hannah followed my gaze. "Oh, yeah," she screams, "organized crime in 5 languages. You don't know that. Lena, look at her. Look at the guys with her. That is not a book club." I snorted, but my chest felt tight. I knew Hannah was probably right, but that only made it worse, more intense. It felt like standing on the edge of a rooftop, toes hanging over the ledge, knowing you should back away, feeling the wind tug at your clothes, and wondering how it would feel to lean forward just a little too far. Hannah started telling a story about a patient who bit their dentist. I nodded at what felt like appropriate moments, but my mind was elsewhere. The woman finished her drink and rose gracefully, saying something to the man on her left. He snapped his fingers. The group moved with her toward the private lounge at the back of the bar. As she passed, the faint scent of expensive perfume and smoke brushed over me. Citrus, leather, something dark and bitter underneath. Her eyes skimmed over me, stopped, held. This time, she didn't look away immediately. Her gaze flicked down, my cheap top, my scuffed boots, then back up to my face. It wasn't judgment so much as assessment, like she was cataloging me. My heart did a violent, stupid little leap. Then she was gone, disappearing through a frosted glass door, the men at her back closing around her like a living wall. I should have let the door stay closed. I didn't. The problem was, I am exactly the kind of person who does something stupid and only realizes how bad it was in hindsight. Hannah went to the bathroom. The bartender refilled my water. The room hummed, but the energy felt wrong without the gravity of that woman at its center. My mind spun through possibilities. Who is she? How rich is she? How dangerous is she? What does it feel like to be the one she looks at on purpose? When the bathroom door closed behind Hannah, my body moved before my brain did. I slid off the stool and walked toward the back hallway like I belonged there. A tall man in a black suit stepped in front of the frosted glass door to the lounge, hand casually folded in front of him. "Private room," he said. His voice had that bored, professional tone that meant I can break your arm without wrinkling my shirt. "I know," I blurted. "I just, left my phone in there earlier. The bartender said it might be back here." He looked me up and down, taking in everything, the cheap jewelry, the slight tremble in my hand, the lie hanging in the air between us. Before he could respond, the door opened behind him. A woman with a sleek bob peeked out, whispering something in Italian. From inside, I heard a familiar voice answer, low, smooth, edged with steel. The guard glanced back, then at me again, like he was weighing whether I was worth the bother. "Wait here," he said finally. He slipped inside, leaving me alone in the hallway with my terrible decisions. "You're insane," I muttered to myself. My palms were slick. My knees felt unreliable. The door opened again. The guard didn't come out. She did. Up close, Alessandra was sharper. Fine laugh lines etched the corners of her eyes, but there was nothing soft about her. She wore her age like another accessory, evidence that she'd lived through things softer people hadn't. "Non è il telefono," she said over her shoulder to someone inside. Then to me, "You're not staff." Her accent was Italian, but her English was flawless, every consonant clean. "No," I said, my voice coming out hoarse. I thought I dropped my phone earlier." "You're lying," she said, mildly, like she was commenting on the weather. She took a drag of her cigarette and blew the smoke to the side, not in my face. "Why are you really here?" I should have bailed. Apologized, run, pretended I wandered down the wrong hallway. Instead, I heard myself say, "I just wanted to see you again." Her eyes flickered, just a tiny shift, but I saw it. Interest, amusement, maybe annoyance. "How old are you?" 26, she hummed, some private calculation happening behind her gaze. "And the woman you came in with?" My stomach dropped. "She's my girlfriend." A corner of her mouth tipped up, not quite a smile. "Does she know you're seeing other people in hotel hallways?" Heat crawled up my neck. I didn't, this was stupid, I'll go." I started to turn, her hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not painful, just firm. Her fingers were warm, her grip sure. A little shock went through me, instantaneous and wildly disproportionate to the contact. Wait, she said. I did. Of course I did. Name, she said. It wasn't a question so much as an efficient step in a process. Lena, I managed. Lena Cruz. She rolled it on her tongue once, like tasting a wine she wasn't sure about yet. Lena. Up close, her eyes were almost black, ringed with faint traces of kohl. There was a small scar near her left eyebrow, the kind that looked like it came with a story you didn't ask for unless you wanted to see what else she could do. You've been staring at me since you walked in, she said. No accusation, just observation. You don't look like a cop, or competition, so what are you? A disaster, I said, before my brain could intervene. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd messed up. Then, impossibly, she laughed. It was short and low, but it softened her mouth, made her look 5 years younger. A little honesty, she said. Unexpected. I swallowed. Sorry, I'll stop being weird and go. Do you know who I am, Kara? She asked. No. Yes, not by name, but by orbit. I am someone it is not wise to follow, she said. Men who follow me usually end up broke, dead, or very useful. Women? Her gaze flicked down and up again, slower this time. Women are more complicated. My pulse pounded so loud I barely heard the muffled music from the bar. You should go back to your girlfriend, she continued, releasing my wrist. She looks like she loves you, or at least thinks she does. The way she said it, flat, clinical, made something stubborn rise up in my chest. You don't know anything about her, I snapped. I know enough, she said calmly. She watches you like she's already counting the ways you might disappoint her. It was too precise, too close. I flinched. You don't know anything about me either, I added. Defensive and ridiculous. I know you want out, she said softly. Out of that cheap handbag you saved 3 paychecks for. Out of the job that's grinding your feet into the floor. Out of the life that fits, but only if you stop breathing too deeply. My mouth went dry. Tell me I'm wrong, she said. Tell me you don't look at women like me and think, why not me? Why not a life like that? I couldn't. Silence answered for me. From the bar, Hannah's laugh floated down the hallway, bright and unaware. Go, Alessandra said again, but there was something different in her now, like a switch had flipped. For tonight, we're not done, Lena Cruz. The way she said my full name felt like a promise, or a threat. I stumbled back to the bar, hands shaking. Hannah squinted at me. Everything okay? Yeah, I lied. Just got lost. I was already lost. She was just the first one honest enough to point it out. For a few days, I convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing, or at least exaggerated it. I went back to work, I stocked shelves, rang up customers, pretended the fluorescent lights weren't slowly killing brain cells. I tried to be present with Hannah, but Alessandra lived in the back of my mind now, pacing, her voice. The weight of her gaze, like she saw through every cheap excuse I hid behind. The way she said, we're not done. On Wednesday night, walking home from the subway, I noticed the car, black, tinted windows, idling half a block behind me, moving when I moved. You watch too much true crime, I told myself. Lots of people drive black sedans in Queens. I turned down a side street. The car followed, silent and smooth. My heart picked up speed. I tightened my grip on my tote bag, mentally cataloging what in there could be used as a weapon. Water bottle, keys, a paperback romance novel. Not ideal. The car eased ahead of me, then pulled over to the curb. I thought about turning and sprinting, but there was nowhere to sprint to that a car couldn't follow faster. The back window rolled down halfway. Get in, a familiar voice said. You're walking in the rain. I blinked. I hadn't even noticed the drizzle starting, just a faint mist on my skin. Alessandra leaned back in the leather seat, one arm draped casually along the backrest, like this was the most normal thing in the world. I'm fine, I croaked, throat suddenly dry. You're soaked, she observed, and shivering. Get in, Piccola. I don't like shouting out car windows in the middle of Queens. Everything about this screamed bad idea in flashing neon. And yet, I opened the door and slid inside. The car smelled like leather and that same dark perfume. The door closed with a soft, expensive click. Up close in the dim interior, she looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. Faint shadows under her eyes, a tightness at the edges of her mouth. Power came with a cost, apparently. Hello again, she said. You're following me. Observing, she corrected. Making sure the girl who lies badly in hotel hallways doesn't get mugged walking home from the subway. Totally normal thing to do, I muttered. For me, she said. Yes. The car pulled away smoothly. How do you even know where I live? I asked. She gave me a look that said, come on. You gave me your name, Kara. That's all I need. That's terrifying. That's honest. We were quiet for a minute. Streetlights painted stripes across her face as we drove. Are you afraid of me? She asked. Yes, I said. It surprised both of us. And no, I don't know. Good, she said. Fear without curiosity is useless. Curiosity without fear is suicidally stupid. I huffed out a breath that was almost a laugh. Great, so I'm half a disaster instead of a full one. Half is progress, she said. The car slowed. I looked out the window and realized we were in front of my apartment building. My stomach twisted. So you really, of course, she cut in. You thought I would put you in a car without knowing where you sleep. She said it so simply that it took me a second to realize how invasive that actually was. This is messed up, I said. Yes. Her gaze met mine, steady. Do you want me to stop? Yes, the rational part of me screamed. No, something deeper whispered. Why me? I asked instead. You. I'm nobody. You watched me like you'd already written 3 different futures in your head, she said softly. And not a single one of them involved you staying small. That interests me. My heart beat against my ribs like it was trying to answer for me. Think about what you want, Lena, she said. Really think about it, not what you think you're allowed to want. She nodded to the door. The driver was already looking straight ahead, the boundary clear. Nothing leaves this car unless she wants it to. I stepped out into the drizzle. When I got upstairs, there was an envelope on our kitchen counter. No stamp, no name. Just sitting there like it had always belonged. Inside, a neat stack of $100 bills, $1,000, and a single business card. Embossed, heavy paper, no phone number, no email. Just Alessandra DeLuca, and an address on the Upper East Side. On the back, in looping, expensive handwriting, you're not nobody. I should have burned it, or called the cops. Instead, I hid the money in a shoebox under the bed. 2 days later, I lied to Hannah for the first time. Double shift, I said, tying my laces. We're short-staffed. She frowned. On a Sunday? Yeah, holiday sale. Managers are freaking out. She sighed and kissed my cheek. Don't let them work you to death, okay? Sure, I said, and walked straight past the subway toward the address on the card. It was one of those quiet Upper East Side buildings that didn't need to show off. Doorman in a perfect uniform, marble lobby, no names on the buzzers, just numbers, as if privacy itself was another amenity. Can I help you? The doorman asked, looking me over. I held out the card. I'm here to see Ms. DeLuca. He didn't even glance at the name. Just picked up the phone, murmured something, listened, then nodded. Penthouse, elevator on the left. My stomach swooped as the elevator climbed. By the time the doors slid open to a private foyer, my hands were shaking. Then I stepped into her world. Floor-to-ceiling windows with the city sprawled beneath like a lit-up map. Minimalist furniture that probably each had a designer name and tragic backstory. Art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a living room. Alessandra stood by the window, phone in hand, speaking in rapid Italian. She hung up as I approached, slipping the phone into her pocket. You came, she said. You sent a car to stalk me and left cash in my apartment, I shot back. It felt rude not to at least complain in person. Her mouth curved. Sit. I sat on the edge of the leather sofa, hyper-aware of my cheap jeans against probably stupidly expensive upholstery. Tea? Coffee? Something stronger? I'm not supposed to take drinks from strangers, I said. If I wanted to hurt you, Kara, she said mildly, pouring herself an espresso, you would not have made it to the elevator. Comforting, I muttered. She handed me a tiny cup anyway. The coffee was rich and dark, and I was too anxious to refuse. Why the money? I asked, fingers tight around the porcelain. A test, she said. I wanted to see what you'd do. And what did I do? You kept it, she said. But you didn't spend it, and you still came here instead of pretending it never happened. She sat across from me, crossing one leg over the other. Her gaze pinned me in place. I'm not a good woman, Lena. I kind of gathered, I said. This life I built, she went on, as if I hadn't spoken. It runs on loyalty, fear, and money, sometimes in that order, sometimes not. It is not a game you can play halfway. Then why drag me into it? Because you are already halfway in, she said quietly. That night at the bar, the way you watched me, you were already reaching for something you don't have yet. I am simply giving you a clearer choice. What choice? She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes never leaving mine. You have a girlfriend, a life, a job that bores you, a future you can predict down to which color Tupperware you'll be eating leftovers from at 40. That's harsh, I whispered, because it was also true. Or, she continued, you can walk out of that life and into mine. I will take you to Italy. I will give you a home, a purpose, things you have never dared to want out loud. But it will come with a price. Which is? You belong to me, she said simply. Not like property, like gravity. I pull, you come. You do not lie to me. You do not betray me. You understand that my enemies become your enemies and my protection becomes your shield. My heart hammered. You don't even know me. Her gaze softened, barely. I know enough. I will learn the rest. And my girlfriend? She didn't flinch. You cannot have both. I don't share. You're asking me to blow up my whole life for someone I've known for 2 weeks. I am not asking, she said. I am offering. You are the one who will do the blowing up if you choose it. I stared at her, at the skyline behind her, at the version of myself reflected faintly in the glass. Small, messy ponytail, knockoff sneakers, cheap earrings. This is insane, I said. Yes, a slow smile tugged at her mouth. So is staying in a life you hate because it's comfortable. She stood and crossed the space between us until she was standing right in front of me. The scent of her perfume wrapped around me. Stand up, she murmured. I did. She lifted a hand, fingertips brushing my jaw, my cheekbone, tucking a stray curl behind my ear like she'd been doing it for years. My breath stuttered. Tell me you don't feel it, she said softly. Look me in the eye and tell me you want to go back to your little apartment and pretend this never happened. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Her thumb traced my lower lip, barely there. I felt it everywhere. I'm not going to touch you again, she said, voice low, until you've decided. You have 1 week. End things cleanly, or don't. But next Sunday at 8 p.m., my car will be outside your building. If you get in, you don't crawl back. If you don't, I disappear from your life. No more cars, no more envelopes, no more chances. Then she stepped back, leaving my skin buzzing, my lungs struggling. Go home, Lena, she said. Figure out what it is you're really afraid of losing. There's no gentle way to dismantle a life. There's just pull one thread and watch everything come apart. That week, I rehearsed breakup speeches in my head and failed every single one of them. It's not you, it's me. Fine, true, and useless. I need space. Cowardly, I met someone else. Too cruel, too clean. Hannah noticed, of course. You're weird, she said on Tuesday, shoving takeout containers into the fridge. Weirder than usual. I'm just tired. From what, standing at a register? The snap in her voice wasn't new, but it hit different now. Talk to me, Lena. You're somewhere else lately. She was right. I was in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, in a car that smelled like leather and sin, on a cliff in some imaginary Italian villa I'd never seen but already almost missed. I don't know what I want, I admitted, staring at the cheap laminate countertop. Well, that's honest, she said, less harsh. Maybe we can figure it out together. The worst part was, Hannah was good, solid. The kind of person who shows up when your grandma is sick and brings soup without being asked. The kind of person you should build a life with. And it still wasn't enough. On Friday night, we sat on the couch half watching a baking show, blue light flickering across our faces. Hannah's feet were in my lap. I traced absent circles on her ankle, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. Han, I said finally. Her eyes stayed on the TV, but I felt her tense. Yeah? I think. My throat closed around the words. I think I'm not happy. In general or with me? Both, I said, because half-truths were poison. But especially with us. I feel like we're roommates more than anything, like we're just waiting for something to happen to us instead of actually living. Her eyes were shiny when she finally looked at me. Did you meet someone? I could have lied. Maybe I should have. Yes, I said. Her face crumpled, then hardened. How long? Couple weeks. So I watched you drag yourself home from work, listened to you complain, tried to build something with you for 3 years, and some stranger shows you shiny things and suddenly you're done? It's not about shiny things, I protested, even though that was part of it and we both knew it. It's about feeling awake, like my life isn't already mapped out, and sleeping with someone older and richer fixes that? I haven't slept with her, I blurted, then realized what I'd revealed. Her, Hannah repeated. Of course, that tracks. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. I'm sorry, you don't deserve this. You're right, she said quietly. I don't. She stood, crossed to the bedroom, and started pulling clothes from drawers. What are you doing? Leaving, she said. Because if you stay here tonight, you're going to spend the whole time wondering if you should go to her on Sunday, and we both know you're already gone. Her voice broke on the last word. I tried to help, to say something, anything that would make this less awful. She held up a hand. Don't, she said. Just don't. Go chase your dangerous little fantasy, Lena. I hope to God it doesn't eat you alive. She left with one suitcase and her favorite mug. The quiet she left behind was louder than any fight we'd ever had. I slept badly for 2 nights, ate nothing, checked my phone obsessively even though there was nothing to check. On Sunday at 7:58 p.m., I stood at the window, heart pounding, watching the street. At 8 on the dot, a black car slid to the curb. I could have turned off the UR lights, could have pretended not to be home, could have chosen the simple life, the safe route, the path where Italian mafia queens stayed in movies. Instead, I grabbed my bag, walked downstairs, and opened the door. The same driver, the same expensive leather interior, no Alessandra. As the car pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You chose. I had no idea what I'd just chosen, only that there was no going back. We didn't go to the Upper East Side. We drove to Teterboro. By the time the private jet came into view, sleek, white, obscene, I was past shock and into some numb, floaty state where my brain refused to process anything properly. Alessandra waited at the foot of the steps, hands in her coat pockets, hair ruffled by the wind. Under the harsh runway lights, she looked more human, faint lines around her eyes, tiredness at the corners of her mouth. When she saw me, something like relief flickered across her face before that controlled composure snapped back into place. You're late, she said. It's 8:47, I protested. I said 8, she replied, but there was no bite in it. Come. Inside, the plane was ridiculous. Cream leather seats, polished wood, a bar stocked with bottles whose labels I didn't recognize. I perched on the edge of a seat like I was afraid to break it. Where are we going? I asked as the plane taxied. Sicily, she said. My family's home, my real home. You just assume I have my passport on me? I assume nothing, she said. I had it delivered from your apartment this morning. I stared. You broke into my apartment and stole my passport. Stole implies I'm keeping it, she said. You will get it back if you behave. She was joking, I think. Mostly. The plane lifted off, the city shrinking below us. My stomach dropped, but it wasn't just the altitude. Regrets? She asked, fastening her seatbelt with lazy efficiency. I haven't eaten in 24 hours, I admitted, so my regrets are currently more about not bringing snacks. That earned me a real laugh, brief but bright. We'll fix that. Food appeared like magic. Pasta, olives, warm bread, things that tasted better than anything that had ever come out of my microwave. We talked. Safe topics at first. My childhood in Queens. Her memories of growing up between Palermo and New York. I didn't ask about the illegal parts. She didn't volunteer. There was a silent agreement there that we both clung to for the duration of the flight. At some point, the conversation slowed. The cabin lights dimmed. My eyelids grew heavy. Sleep, she said softly. We land in the morning. I can't sleep on planes, I murmured. Try, she said. You're no good to me, half dead. Heat curled in my stomach at the casual to me. I must have nodded off because the next thing I knew, I woke to sunlight slanting through the window and the faint ache in my neck that meant I'd slumped sideways. My head was on her shoulder. Her arm was around me, hand resting lightly on my hip, like holding me there had been the most natural thing in the world. For a second, neither of us moved. Morning, she said quietly. Sorry, I said, jerking back. I didn't mean to. If I minded, I would have moved you, she said. Look. Out the window, the Mediterranean spread out in a glittering sheet of blue. An island rose up from it, all rocky cliffs and clusters of old stone buildings, like a painting brought to life. That's home, she said. Pride threaded through the word, rough and unpolished. Home. I had burned mine down. I had no choice now but to see what hers looked like up close. The drive from the tiny Sicilian airport wound through narrow roads that clung to the hillside like they were afraid of falling. Old men sat outside cafes, smoking and arguing about something animatedly. Laundry fluttered from balconies. Then the town fell away, and we were on a private road. At the end of it, a villa perched on a cliff, watching the sea like a patient predator. Stone walls, terracotta roof, balconies with wrought iron railings draped in bougainvillea. It didn't scream new money, it whispered old power. Inside, it was all high ceilings and cool tile floors. Heavy wooden furniture softened by modern touches, sleek lamps, abstract art. A massive sound system tucked discreetly into a wall. Staff moved like ghosts, appearing, offering coffee or luggage assistance, then disappearing again. Every person greeted Alessandra with a respectful Signora De Luca. "And this is?" one older woman asked in Italian, looking at me with open curiosity. "La mia ospite," Alessandra replied. "My guest." My Italian was terrible, but my pride wasn't. The word sat oddly in my chest. Temporary, fragile. She led me upstairs to a bedroom that was somehow larger than our entire Queen's apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened out onto a balcony with a view straight down to the crashing waves below. "This is your room," she said. For now." For now, her mouth twitched. "Until you decide if you want to keep waking up here." My suitcases were already there, packed more neatly than I would ever manage, my few decent outfits hanging in the massive wardrobe like they were ashamed of themselves. "This is insane," I muttered, stepping onto the balcony. The wind off the sea whipped my hair around my face. Like medically insane. "Probably," she said from the doorway. "Do you want to sleep or shower?" "What if I say panic attack?" She considered. "We can schedule that for after lunch." I laughed, surprised. The tension in my shoulders loosened a fraction. "Shower," I said. "Maybe if I scrub hard enough, this will turn out to be a hallucination." "It will still be here when you get out," she said. "So will I." The bathroom was all stone and glass and some kind of rainfall showerhead situation that felt like being baptized in rich people water. By the time I emerged in a borrowed robe that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, the worst of the travel grime was gone. The shock wasn't. Alessandra stood by the balcony, smoking, the wind tugging at her hair. She glanced back when she heard the door. "You clean up well," she said. "You kidnapped me in style," I replied. "If you truly believed you were kidnapped," she said, "you wouldn't have packed your favorite jacket." She wasn't wrong. We ate lunch on the terrace, pasta with clams, grilled vegetables, wine that went down too easily. The sun warmed my skin. The sea roared below. At some point, she reached across the table and brushed a smear of sauce from the corner of my mouth with her thumb. The air between us tightened. "You keep doing that," I whispered. "What?" "Touching me like it's nothing." Her gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. "It's not nothing." My heart hammered. "You said you wouldn't touch me until I decided." "Did you decide?" she asked. "Yes," I said, before I could think better of it. "I did. And I'm here," I said simply. "I still don't know how this ends, but I know I don't want to go back." Something in her expression shifted then, less calculated, more raw. She stood, came around the table, and held out a hand. "Walk with me." We stepped onto the lower terrace, where potted lemon trees perfumed the air. She stopped near the railing, close enough that I could see the gold flecks at the edge of her iris. "One last chance to change your mind," she murmured. "I already did that 100 times this week," I said. "This is the only choice I haven't chickened out of yet." Her hand slid from my wrist up to my jaw, fingers threading into my damp hair. "Brava," she whispered, and then she kissed me. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't polite, it was a claim, a question, and a dare all at once. I answered with every bad decision that had led me here. When we finally broke apart, breathless, her forehead rested against mine. "Welcome to my life, Lena," she said. "Try not to let it kill you. I didn't die. I just stopped being the person who would have been fine never leaving Queens." The first weeks blurred together in a strange, luxurious fog. Mornings, I woke to sunlight filtering through sheer curtains and the sound of waves hitting rock. Sometimes Alessandra was already gone, her side of the bed cool, a note on the pillow telling me she'd be back by lunch. Sometimes she was still there, arm heavy across my waist, breathing deep and even. When she stayed, we'd lie there, bodies tangled, her fingers lazily tracing shapes on my skin. We didn't talk about what she did for work. We talked about small things, coffee, books, music. She listened more than I expected. Afternoons, I wandered the villa, getting lost in its maze of rooms. A library that smelled like old paper and dust and money. A workout room with punching bags, and a rack of free weights that looked well used. One day, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense bun appeared in the dining room while I was picking at cheese and bread. "I am Francesca," she said in accented English. "Signora says you shouldn't live on crackers and espresso. I teach you to cook, see?" Before I could answer, another woman appeared. Much younger, dark curls, ink stains on her fingers. "And I'm Julia," she said. "I'm here to fix your Italian." I blinked between them. "She hired tutors?" "Better than you doom-scrolling alone all day," Julia said with a shrug. "Come on, Americana. Let's see how badly you butcher verb tenses." It helped. Learning the language, the food, the history, it anchored me to the place in a way that shopping or lying in bed didn't. Still, there were edges I couldn't see past, closed doors, phone calls that went on too long in rooms I was gently discouraged from entering. At night sometimes, Alessandra came to bed smelling like smoke and stress, her jaw tight. Those nights she kissed me like she needed absolution and grabbed at me like she'd spent all day holding back. "Bad day," I'd ask, when I could breathe. "You don't want the details," she'd say. She wasn't wrong, but part of me wanted them anyway. The first real fight came about a month in. It started with something small, like most explosions. "I want to go into town," I said over breakfast. "There's a market." Julia said it's amazing, fresh fruit, jewelry, all kinds of stuff. "I'll have someone take you," Alessandra said, scrolling through something on her phone. "I want to go alone." Her eyes flicked up. "No. No?" I repeated, pulse already spiking. "It's not safe," she said. "People know this house. They know who lives here. They see you coming and going. They know you're important to me. That makes you a target." "I'm not asking to walk into a rival boss's headquarters," I snapped. "I'm asking to buy tomatoes and maybe a bracelet." "With a guard," she said, or not at all. The way she said it, final, immovable, scraped at something stubborn inside me. "In Queens, I took the subway at midnight," I said. "I walked home alone. In Queens, no one was shooting at you to get to me," she cut in, voice sharper now. "Is that happening here?" Silence. A muscle jumped in her jaw. "Thought so," I said. "You can't lock me up because your life is dangerous, Alessandra. I didn't come here to be a pet." Her gaze went glacial. "Is that what you think you are?" "I don't know what I am," I shot back. "Your guest? Your kept girl? Your mistake? All I know is I don't have a job or friends or anything that's actually mine here. I just have you. And the second you walk out that door, I might as well not exist." That landed. I saw it in the slight flinch at the corner of her mouth. She put the phone down carefully, like she didn't trust herself not to throw it. "You think this is easy for me," she said quietly, "letting you into this house, this life? I have enemies who would cut off their own hand for a chance to get at what I care about." "I'm not asking you to hand them a map," I replied. "I'm asking not to sit in this beautiful prison, waiting for you to remember I exist." We stared at each other across the table, coffee going cold between us. Then she sighed, a deep, bone-tired sound. "Fine," she said. "You want something that's yours? Work for me." That's literally the opposite of mine. "In the legitimate businesses," she clarified. "I own an art gallery in Palermo, a small hotel in Taormina, fashion investments in Milan. You want purpose. I'll give you work that matters, but I will not let you pretend you're not tied to me while we both know you are." It wasn't the victory I wanted, but it wasn't nothing. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll try." Her shoulders loosened a fraction. "Good. And for the market?" "I'll take a guard," I conceded. "But he's not allowed to hover. If he ruins my bargaining leverage, I'm blaming you." Her lips twitched. "Deal." Later, when the fight had cooled and we were in bed, she traced circles on my spine and murmured, "You are not a pet, Lena. You are the one person in this house who tells me the truth to my face. That makes you dangerous. And precious." "Precious things belong in safes," I mumbled into her shoulder. "Or on pillows," she countered, kissing my hair. "And I'm very fond of my pillows." I rolled my eyes, but my chest felt warmer than I wanted to admit. News travels fast when your sister is good at Googling. I lasted 2 more weeks before guilt dragged me back across an ocean. I should see my parents, I told Alessandra one night, before they find out about all this from someone else. They already know something, she said. Your mother has called your old number 4 times. Your sister posted dramatic song lyrics on Instagram about betrayal. My people monitor these things. Your people stalk my sister's Instagram. Of course, she said. You're mine. They're adjacent. I ignored the shiver those words sent through me. I need to talk to them in person. She studied me for a long moment. I'll come, she said finally. That's a terrible idea. They should see I am a person, not just a scary story your uncle tells at barbecues. My uncle doesn't even know yet. He will, she said. Better he hears it from your father than from the news. So we flew back. Not on the same jet as before. This one was smaller, more discreet. Alessandra wore a dark coat and no jewelry. Her hair pulled back. Every visible signal turned down to respectable rich woman instead of crime matriarch. My parents lived in a modest brick house in New Jersey. 2 floors, a neat patch of grass my dad fussed over, a Virgin Mary statue by the front stoop. When they opened the door and saw us, my mother's face did a complicated thing between relief and horror. Lena, she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like laundry detergent and sofrito. You disappeared. I called, I protested weakly. You texted, she corrected. 3 sentences that sounded nothing like you. Her eyes shifted to Alessandra, taking in her tailored coat, her age, the way she stood slightly behind me but was clearly used to being the one people orbited. And this is? This is my partner, I said. Alessandra. Ms. DeLuca, my father said from the hallway, voice stiff. We've heard the name. Of course they had. My little sister, Marisol, was perched on the stairs, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. She looked equal parts fascinated and terrified. We sat in the living room. My mother clutched her rosary like the beads could maybe ward off organized crime. So, my father said, turning to me, you leave your job. You vanish overseas with a woman twice your age. And then we find out, from Google, that her last name is attached to half the crime reports in Sicily for the last 20 years. You want to explain that to us? I swallowed. I know how it looks. Do you? He asked. Alessandra spoke then, her voice calm. Mr. and Mrs. Cruz, I understand your concern. If I had a daughter, I would be furious. That disarmed them more than any denial would have. But she continued, I care for your daughter, deeply. I won't apologize for that. My dad snorted. Caring for someone and dragging them into a life where they can get shot are 2 different things. Your daughter was not safe in her old life either, Alessandra said quietly. Different dangers maybe, but a soul can die from boredom as surely as from a bullet. That is not the same, and you know it, my mother snapped, her voice shaking. I jumped in before it escalated. I'm not a prisoner, I said. I chose this. I know it's messed up. I know her world is dangerous. But I feel alive with her, like I'm finally in a life that fits, instead of squeezing into something 3 sizes too small. Marisol spoke up from the stairs. You're in love with her? Yes, I said simply. She looked at Alessandra in a new way then, calculating. Are you in love with my sister? Alessandra didn't flinch. Yes. Silence. Even the refrigerator hums seemed to pause. My father scrubbed a hand over his face. Do you understand what people like you do, Ms. DeLuca? Yes, she said. Better than anyone. And you still think you can protect her from that? I don't think, she said. I promise. You can't promise that, my mother whispered. No, Alessandra agreed. But I do anyway. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't approval, but it was enough for my parents not to throw me out. When we left, Marisol walked us to the car. She's scary, she whispered as we reached the curb. I know, I whispered back. And hot, she added, making a face. Which is worse, because now I get it, and I hate that I get it. I laughed, tension breaking for a second. Marisol sobered. Just don't let her turn you into a story we only talk about when we're drunk at Christmas, okay? I'll try, I said. Alessandra extended her hand. Piacere, Marisol. My sister shook it reluctantly. If you get her killed, I'll haunt you, she said. I don't care how tough you are. Alessandra inclined her head, solemn. Fair. On the drive back to the city, my chest ached, but not from regret. From the realization that I'd chosen a life they would never fully understand. And that I wanted it anyway. Back in Sicily, Alessandra made good on her promise. She put me to work. Her Palermo gallery was all white walls and concrete floors, a temple to expensive confusion. An older man named Vittorio ran it day to day, and he greeted me with the wary politeness of someone used to boss his parachuting relatives in. "I'm not here to replace you," I told him. "I'm here to learn, and probably mess up." He snorted. "Good. I hate being replaced." I learned quickly how to read the difference between "this artist is genius" and "this artist has a rich uncle," how to talk to collectors without sounding like I grew up on layaway, how to spot money laundering disguised as a bulk sculpture purchase. Alessandra watched from a distance at first, then closer. "You're good with people," she said one night as we drove back up the cliff road. "It's retail, but with weirder inventory," I said. "That is not a bad description of my life," she replied dryly. The first time I met one of her exes, I understood her in a new, unsettling way. It was at a fundraiser, a half-charity, half-networking event in Palermo. Everyone was dressed to impress. I wore a black dress picked by a stylist in Milan, and jewelry Alessandra fastened around my throat herself. "This is Chiara," someone said at my elbow later that night. I turned to find a stunning woman in her late 30s, all sharp cheekbones and sharper lipstick, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "For you," she said, handing me one without asking. "You must be Lena, the new legend." "Legend?" I echoed. She tilted her head toward Alessandra, who was across the room in a tight cluster of men in suits. "She doesn't bring people like you to these things, or teach them her businesses, or look at them like that." "Like, what?" "Like you're the one who might actually break her," Chiara said casually. I'm impressed. There was an edge under the charm, sharp and bitter. "You too?" I started, then stopped. "Because some questions you can't gracefully walk back." She smiled, all teeth. "We had fun," she said. Until she remembered she doesn't do fun, she does control. "She does something," I muttered. Chiara laughed. "You think you're the exception. That's cute." I did too. "Maybe I am," I said, surprising myself with how certain I sounded. Her gaze flicked over me, assessing. "Maybe you are. Just remember, when a woman like that loves you, it comes wrapped in chains, not ribbon." She disappeared into the crowd, leaving me with a sour taste in my mouth and a head full of doubts. Alessandra found me on the balcony later, leaning on the stone railing, watching the city lights flicker. "You spoke to Chiara," she said. It wasn't a question. "She's intense," I said. "So am I," Alessandra replied. "Do you regret coming tonight?" "No," I said. "Do you regret bringing me?" She stepped closer, her hand slipping around my waist. "Not for a second." "Were you in love with her?" I asked. Her jaw flexed. "No. I was in love with the idea of not being alone. That's different." "And with me?" She didn't hesitate. "With you, I am in love with you. Not an idea. Not a distraction. You." It was terrifying how much I wanted to believe her. Later, when we got home, she kissed me with a desperation that tasted like ownership and fear. "You're mine," she murmured against my throat. "Don't let ghosts convince you otherwise." "I'm not a possession," I whispered back. "No," she said. "You're the only thing I can't afford to lose." Somehow, that was worse and better. Jealousy with Alessandra wasn't an occasional flare-up. It was a state of matter. When I talked to a handsome young artist for 20 minutes too long at a gallery opening, her hand found the small of my back and stayed there, heavy and territorial. When a hotel manager in Taormina complimented my Italian, her arm slid around my shoulders and her smile went ice cold. "You're ridiculous," I told her one night, after we'd snapped at each other all through dinner over nothing. "You know that, right?" "Yes," she said. "And you're still here." We ended up in her office, the air thick with tension, papers scattered across the desk, whiskey half finished. "You don't trust me," I snapped. "I don't trust anyone," she retorted. "That's not healthy." "Neither is walking into bullets," she shot back. We stood there, glaring at each other like two magnets trying to decide whether to repel or collide. "You know what your problem is?" I said finally. "You think loving someone means owning every look, every laugh, every second of their day. That's not love. That's annexation." "Annexation?" she echoed, a dangerous heat in her eyes. "Yeah," I said. "You took over my life like it's some neighboring country you get to plant a flag in." She moved then, 2 steps, fast enough that my breath caught. Her hand cupped the back of my neck, not rough, not gentle. Her forehead touched mine. "And yet," she murmured, "you flew across an ocean for the privilege." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to shove her away. Instead, I grabbed handfuls of her shirt and kissed her like I was trying to win an argument we both refused to lose. When we finally broke apart, panting, she whispered, "Marry me." I froze. "What?" "Marry me," she repeated. No teasing, no bargaining, just a flat, terrifying sincerity. "Be my wife." "That's not how proposals work," I stammered. "There's supposed to be, I don't know, flowers, a kneeling situation." She actually dropped to one knee, right there on the office rug. "Madonna," I hissed. I wasn't serious. She took my hands anyway, looking up at me with a vulnerability I had never seen on her face outside of half-sleep. "I don't care about flowers," she said, "or kneeling. I care about this, about you. I want the world to know you're mine in every way that matters. I want paperwork. I want rings. I want you to have my name so that every person who thinks of harming you has to think about what that means." "That's the least romantic spin on marriage I've ever heard," I said weakly, tears already burning behind my eyes. "It's also the truest I can give you," she replied. "You want romance? I'll write you 100 letters. But this is about commitment, about walking into my fire and staying." I pulled my hands free, pacing because standing still hurt. "Do you know what you're asking?" I said. "You're asking me to tie my life legally to a woman who might be in prison in 5 years, or dead, or on the front page of every paper I pass." "Yes," she said simply. "And if I say no, then you stay my lover," she replied. "And I keep loving you until you leave or I stop breathing, but I won't pretend I don't want more." I didn't answer that night. I slept in the guest room for the first time since I arrived, staring at the ceiling, listening to the waves and the distant murmur of her voice on the phone. In the morning, I found her on the balcony, cigarette already half smoked, hair messy in a way she'd never let the outside world see. "Yes," I said. She turned slowly. "Yes? Yes, I'll marry you," I said. "Not because I want your name to scare people, because I'm already in this, Alessandra, fully. I might as well wear the ring." She stepped forward like she was afraid I'd disappear if she moved too fast. When her hands framed my face, they trembled. "You're sure?" "No," I said honestly. "But I want you. Anyway." She kissed me like she was signing a treaty. The next day, a ring appeared, simple white gold, a diamond that managed to be huge without being gaudy. "You're ridiculous," I whispered as she slid it onto my finger. "I'm thorough," she said. Both were true. Planning a wedding when your guest list includes crime figures, terrified family members, and a few actual normal humans is an exercise in controlled chaos. We set the date for 3 months out. "I'm not dragging this out," Alessandra said. "If you wake up one morning and realize I'm a terrible idea, I want it to be after the papers are signed." "Romantic," I deadpanned. She shrugged. "I'm not young enough to waste time pretending." We compromised on the guest list. A handful of her closest associates, a handful of my family and friends. Enough staff to make the whole thing look like a magazine spread. My mother arrived 2 days before the ceremony, eyes wide as she took in the villa. "This is," she trailed off, lost for words. "Yeah," I said. "Exactly." In private, she gripped my hands and whispered, "Are you sure, mija?" "No," I said, because lies felt like curses on a day like this. "But I'm sure I love her." My father remained stiff, but he stood with me in the makeshift bridal room, straightening my veil. "When you were little, you said you were going to marry a pop star," he said. "Then at 16, you said you'd never get married at all. Then you brought home Hannah." "I remember," I said. He swallowed. "This isn't the life I imagined for you, but you look happy and old enough to make your own mistakes." "Thanks, Dad. That's almost a blessing." "It's the best I can do," he said, voice rough. "Don't die, okay?" "I'll do my best," I whispered. The ceremony took place on the lower terrace, the sea a crashing soundtrack behind us. White flowers everywhere. Chairs filled with people who could kill with a phone call, sitting beside people who taught middle school. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, dress rustling, knees weak. Alessandra waited under an arch of roses, wearing a white tuxedo that should have been illegal. Her eyes were shiny. "Bellissima," she murmured when I reached her. The officiant spoke in Italian and English, weaving both languages together. When it was time for vows, Alessandra went first. "Lena," she said, voice steady but soft. "Before you, my life was numbers, names, territory. Win, lose, survive. I never planned for anything beyond the next move. You made me want a future, a real one. With coffee in the mornings and arguments about curtains and someone to call when the day goes to hell. A faint ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. I cannot promise you safety, she continued. My world doesn't allow that. But I can promise you loyalty, respect. A love that might be too much, but will never be less than everything I have. I choose you, every day, even when it's hard, especially then. I blinked fast, trying not to smudge my makeup and failing. My turn, I croaked. She nodded. Alessandra, I said. When I first saw you, I thought you were the kind of woman who only existed in movies. Untouchable, dangerous, not for people like me. I took a shaky breath. I was right about the dangerous part, but not about the rest. You look at me like I'm equal. Like I'm not just some kid you picked up because you were bored. You make me feel like my dreams aren't stupid. Like I can be more than a girl behind a cash register who wants things she can't afford. I can't promise not to be scared. I am scared, a lot. But I can promise to stand next to you, not behind you. To tell you the truth even when you'd rather hear a lie. To love you when you're strong, and when you're tired, and when you're being an overprotective nightmare. She smiled, eyes wet. I choose you, I finished. Every day, even when it would be easier not to. We slid rings onto each other's fingers. When the officiant pronounced us married, Alessandra didn't wait for permission. She pulled me in and kissed me, slow and deep. With the whole world watching. The applause was loud. Somewhere in the back, I heard Marisol whoop. For a moment, the danger, the logistics, the whispered conversations about security were background noise. For a moment, it was just us. Married life with a mafia queen looked on the surface deceptively normal. We had routines, coffee on the terrace, arguments about her smoking, me complaining about gallery shipments, her complaining about incompetent lieutenants, sex that was somehow better now that we'd said forever out loud. But the gun lived on her nightstand. I saw it for the first time 2 months after the wedding, when she forgot to slide the drawer all the way closed. You sleep with that next to you, I asked, trying to keep my voice casual and failing. Yes, she said, always have. Comforting, I muttered. It is, she said. You just haven't had enough people try to kill you yet to appreciate it. I rolled my eyes, but unease wormed under my skin. The first real scare came on a Tuesday. Bad things always seem to happen on boring days. We were in bed, half asleep. I was drifting, head on her chest, listening to her heart beat slow and steady. The first sound was a shout from downstairs. Then another. Then the muffled pop of something I really hoped wasn't a gun. Alessandra was out of bed and at the drawer before my brain caught up. Gun in hand, stance loose but ready, all softness gone from her face. Closet, she snapped. Now. Alessandra. Now, Lena. I ran. Sat on the floor behind her hanging clothes, heart pounding so hard it hurt. More shouting, another sharp crack. Someone yelling in Italian, someone else screaming. Then silence, minutes, stretched. I lost track. My breath came in small, shallow gasps. The closet door opened. Light spilled in. It's me, she said. The gun was still in her hand. There was blood on her white tank top. My stomach lurched. Are you— Not mine, she said quickly. Not my blood. I burst into tears before I could stop myself. She set the gun on the dresser and pulled me into her arms, holding me so tightly I could feel the tremor in her muscles. What happened? I choked. Someone thought tonight would be a good night to settle a score, she said, voice cool but frayed at the edges. They were wrong. Did you— I couldn't say kill them. The word felt heavy, final. They won't bother us again, she said. It was an answer without being one. Later, after the cleaners did whatever cleaners do in a house where violence is just another kind of spill, we lay in bed, both of us staring at the ceiling. I didn't bring you into this thinking it was safe, she said. I'm not naive. But tonight, you think I'm going to leave, I finished. I wouldn't blame you. I turned on my side to face her, tracing the edge of the dried blood on her shirt with a shaking finger. Tonight sucked, I said. I have never been that scared in my life. Then go, she said softly. The words sounded like they hurt. Before this becomes normal, I swallowed. Normal doesn't exist. Not really. There was danger in Queens too. It just wore different clothes. Creepy guys on the train. Rent we barely made. Medical bills one bad tooth away. This is louder, but at least here, I know who's holding the gun. She stared at me like she didn't quite believe what she was hearing. You're staying, she said. I'm staying, I repeated. Not because I like bullets flying through my house, but because I love you, and I knew, the second I stepped into that bar months ago, that you weren't going to come in a family-friendly version. She barked out a shaky laugh. I pulled off her bloody shirt and tossed it aside, then curled into her chest. If I'm going to be afraid, I whispered, I'd rather be afraid beside you than bored anywhere else. Her arms wrapped around me like a vow. Passa, she murmured into my hair. Crazy. Yeah, I said. You married me anyway. After the attack, something shifted. Security doubled. I got a crash course in what doors to lock, what names to listen for, what streets near the gallery were off limits. But Alessandra also started talking about an exit strategy. Not tomorrow, not next year, but someday. I always thought I'd die in this house, she admitted one night, sitting on the edge of the bed, backlit by moonlight. Not an old woman, not peaceful, just, eventually, in some argument over territory or pride. Comforting, I said, because deflection was my favorite coping mechanism. She ignored that. Now, when I picture the end, you're there, she went on, quietly. You're old, I'm older. We're arguing about, I don't know, the heater or whose turn it is to cook. No one is shooting at us. No one is calling at 3 a.m. with problems only blood solves. My chest tightened. That sounds nice. It sounds impossible, she said. But for the first time, I want to try. Trying for Alessandra looked like this. She delegated more. Let lieutenants take meetings she would have insisted on attending 5 years ago. Pushed more money into legitimate businesses where the worst fight was over branding, not bullets. It's not clean, she warned me. Money doesn't scrub that easily, but it's less dirty. We spent more time at a small farmhouse she bought inland, up in the hills. It was old and crooked and perfect. No marble floors, no armed guards visible from the porch. Just grapevines, olive trees, and a kitchen that begged to be used. This is where we hide when we're tired of pretending we're not a cliché, she said, leaning in the doorway one afternoon while I chopped tomatoes. What cliché? I asked. Older crime boss, younger wife, countryside retreat, she said. It's practically a genre, I snorted. At least we're queer. That's a twist. She laughed. And the sound bounced off the stone walls like light. In the farmhouse, we were just us. We argued about seasoning. She insisted every nonna in Sicily would haunt us if we overcooked the pasta. I accused her of being dramatic. We made love in a creaky bed with mismatched sheets, instead of high thread count linen. We woke up to birds, not distant engines on the coast road. Do you regret it? She asked me once. Early morning light slanting across the wrinkled duvet. Leaving your old life? Sometimes I miss bodegas at midnight, I said honestly. And the way the subway sounds when it's 2 a.m. and you're half asleep. I miss my sister without a time difference. I miss not having to think about who's on the other end of your phone calls. I rolled onto my side, tracing the line of her throat. But regret? I said. No, you're the first thing I've ever chosen with my whole chest. Even when I was terrified. She swallowed hard. Good, she said. I would hate to think I ruined your life by accident. I prefer doing things on purpose. I'm 29 now. Alessandra is 59. We've been together 4 years, married for 3. The gallery has my name on its website now, Elena Lena Cruz, creative director, which still makes me laugh, because the only thing I directed 4 years ago was People Toward the Returns line. I can negotiate with a billionaire art collector without throwing up. I can also ask one of Alessandra's men, is this guy legit or laundering, and get a straight answer. That mix is surreal, but it's my life. Alessandra still runs things. She's still Signora De Luca. But she also gets bored in board meetings now in a way that says her heart is elsewhere. Elsewhere is usually me, or the farmhouse, or some hypothetical future where we spend 6 months of the year someplace where no one knows her name. My parents visit once a year. My mother brings Tupperware full of food. She insists we can't get in Italy. She's wrong, but I let her have it. My father and Alessandra sit on the terrace, arguing about soccer like they've always done it. He still doesn't entirely trust her, but he trusts me. Marisol visited last summer and fell a little bit in love with Sicily, and with my wife's head of security, but that's her mess to sort out. We still fight. Of course we do. She gets jealous when a young curator in Rome laughs too loudly at my jokes. I get furious when she forgets to tell me about a meeting that could have turned ugly. We shout, we slam doors. Once I threw a lemon at her. It bounced off her shoulder, and she laughed so hard I forgot why I was angry. The difference now is that the fights end with us at the same table, or in the same bed, saying I'm sorry, and I love you, and I'm trying. She's still intense, possessive, overbearing. I'm still stubborn, reckless, mouthy. Somehow, that works. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the only sound is the sea, I lie awake with her arm heavy over my waist and think about that bar in Midtown. If I hadn't gone, if I hadn't stared, if I'd listened to Hannah or my parents, or the screaming voice in my own head that said run, I'd probably still be in Queens. Maybe a supervisor by now. Maybe married to someone nice. Maybe one of those couples who post pictures of their dog in matching sweaters. There's nothing wrong with that life, but it isn't mine. Mine is this. A ring on my finger that means both I love you and touch her, and you die. A wife whose hands are steady in a crisis and clumsy when she tries to bake. A house on a cliff where dangerous men take off their shoes in the foyer because they're slightly more afraid of her than of God. A farmhouse where we're just Lena and Alessandra, arguing about whose turn it is to do the dishes. Sometimes, when the fear spikes, when a piece of news breaks about a raid in Palermo, or a car I don't recognize parks too long near the gate, I wonder if I was an idiot to get in that first car, to step onto that first plane. Then she rolls over in her sleep, pulls me closer, and murmurs my name like a prayer and a curse all at once. I think about what my life was before her, small, safe, half asleep. And I know with a clarity that scares me that I'd make the same stupid, reckless choice again. If you're reading this, waiting at some crossroads of your own, everyone telling you to pick the sensible path, the quiet love, the job that doesn't scare you, listen to them. Consider them, they're not wrong. But also listen to the part of you that lights up when you think about the risk. The part of you that wants more, even if you can't articulate what more is yet. Love is not safe. Real love, the kind that sees you, the kind that demands you show up fully, that refuses to let you shrink. That kind is dangerous. It won't always look like a mafia queen in a white suit and a villa on a cliff. It might look like a girl who makes you laugh too loud. A job in a city you've never seen. A version of yourself you're scared to try on. It will cost you comfort, certainty, the ability to pretend you don't care. If you're not ready, that's okay. Some people live whole lives in the shallow end and are perfectly content. But if you are ready, if your heart is pounding and your palms are sweating and everything safe suddenly feels like a cage, then maybe, just maybe, the terrifying choice is the honest one. I chose the woman everyone said would ruin me. Instead, she handed me matches and said, "Fine. Burn down the life that's too small. I'll help build the new one." I'm still scared sometimes. I'm still not safe. But I am, finally, unimaginably, gloriously alive. The end. Stay tuned for more darkly romantic stories where dangerous choices lead to unforgettable lives.